Testing, 1, 2, testing. All right. Looks like the microphone works. All right, can everybody hear me? And if you can, unmute your mic and say yes, you can hear me. And if you can see the slides.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks, everyone. It looks like we have Amanda's here, Brett, Kathy, and Melanie. I don't know if the other people are attending, or let's see, maybe they're down below the list here. Oh, okay, there they are. There's Melanie and Susan and Tina. All right. So I think we're all ready to get started here. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that everybody's seeing the screen. All right. So let me move this out of the way and we can start. All right, so welcome everyone to the fourth class in Nakshatras. And today we're going to be focusing on the second set of Nakshatras. In the beginning, in the first class, we talked about each one of the sets of Nakshatras fitting into one of three camps. So the first set being from Ashwini all the way up to the edge of Magha are all about Rajasic, giving birth to things. And today we're going to move into the second section, which is more about the Tamasic things, which goes from Magha in Leo all the way to the end of Scorpio, Jeshta. And that whole section is called the Tamasic section because it's where you want to protect and build structures and different ways of connecting with people that are all related to the Tamasic guna, which is about really protecting people, getting the obstacles out of the way to make things safe. So we're going to start off with Magha Nakshatra, and then we'll move into Purva Phalguni and Uttara Phalguni Nakshatras. Some people may call those Phalguni. You can pronounce it either way. But having studied Sanskrit quite a bit, Phalguni is actually more accurate than Phalguni. So, but they're both acceptable. So we'll start off with Magha Nakshatra. Now, I also have most of your charts that you've provided me with. I think I have, let's see, I have Amanda's, I have Arvitha's, Melanie's, and Vicky. And I also have Kathy's. So what I did is I did a look at your charts beforehand, and many of you have these nakshatras that we're talking about. So I might call on you to ask you to talk about how that experience falls for you. And then we'll begin to see how that starts to play out in all of our lives. And I don't think I shared on the screen here, but at the end we can look at some of the sample forecasts. So those ought to be, so we're going to go through Magha, Purva Phalguni, Uttara Phalguni, and we're going to again look at the strengths and the shadow issues. And if there's anything that's not working for you, or you're not seeing something being displayed, then don't hesitate to unmute your mic and let me know so that we're getting everything that we need to get, and we're not missing anything. Get all these pictures off the screen. I like Zoom much better than this, but we'll go with it. So let's start off by first centering our awareness. Close your eyes, cut out all the distractions around you, and take a deep breath in and hold it to the count of 3. And let go. And take another deep breath in. Keeping the eyes closed, hold it for the count of 3. And slowly let it out. Become aware of the change in the body as it begins to focus and come into the moment. And put aside anything that you're concerned about later after this class. Just be here now. And as always, we'll begin with the Sanskrit chants. Just keeping your eyes closed. Just feel the vibration of them as they go through the body. Sanskrit's meaning is in the feeling of those energetics that the mantras create. Om. We begin with the invocation to Sri Ganesha. Om Gananam Tva Ganapati Gum Avamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatiyana Shrinvanuti Pisi Dasadanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Hari Om Gurupyo Namaha Hari Om Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Punaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Just feel the vibration of those mantras as they course through the body. Feeling those sounds brings you into the present moment. And now, whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your attention to the class. All right. So as I said before, we're going to cover these next three nakshatras. And we're going to begin with the flow of the spirit through the mind in Magha nakshatra. And Magha means mighty, beneficent. And it shows the love of the family and traditions that are shown in Leo. So there's power, but there's also entitlement, and there's lineage here. The deity is the Pitris, and the Pitris are our ancestors. They are the lineages in our life. Magha is kind of a magical, mystical nakshatra. So at the very first stars that sit in the first section of Leo is where you'll find Magha. And those first 4 stars form the seat, the power seat of the king, which is the throne. And so when we're looking at Magha Nakshatra, the thing that's the most important to see here is, first of all, it's ruled by Ketu. So Ketu is that energy of our previous past lives, even in this life, our earlier past lives, and all of our past lives. Ketu is that energy that connects us to our highest metaphysical knowledge, which has a bit of a resistance to coming into the world because it is the ultimate perfectionism that we have in the world. And it's that thing where we notice the divine discontent because the world isn't perfect. And Ketu is the scrutiny that really notices that and can develop a disgust for the world. But it also brings that perfectionism, which is, that talent, that skill that you've already achieved in this life. And so the Pitris will show that you have an awareness of your own family lineage. So if you have a Magha Nakshatra in your chart, and I didn't see anybody that had Magha. Oh, wait a minute. No, we have Vicky Lim has Magha in her chart. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the story here is that we come into this life through our connection to the lineage of our family and our traditions. And, Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita that there are 7 great rishis, the 4 preceding Manus that partake of his nature, and they were born from his mind, and from them sprang the human race and the world. So he's laying out that historical connection to the rishis. So there's actually 3 connections. There's not only, well, there's probably 4 if you count your own individual lineage. So the first one, Magha, which sits squarely on the throne, the symbol is the throne, a palanquin, and the royal court. A palanquin, you've seen these in movies where the king will get in a sort of a box and there's these rods, kind of like carrying a casket, and they put it up on their shoulder and they carry the king or the queen in the palanquin. And that's what that's all about. So you see not only the power seat of the throne, but you also see the fact that there's the royal court that's always around, and then you see how things move through the kingdom, through the royal court. So on the throne you're seated, and that is the seat of power. The palanquin is just the comfort that moves you from one court to the next. So Magha is first shows a connection to bloodlines that are royal bloodlines. So through Magha, you'll see connections through history that go back to the connections to the royalty, like to the kings and to the queens. And so if you were actually to talk to someone who does a lot of past life stuff, or if you've ever done it, you may have been told that you come from a royal lineage. So that's one of the first things that you'll notice. The second is it's connected to the angelic mystical realms of the angels and those beings which are of that nature. So you may notice in your life having certain blessings that you get, as if you have a guardian angel, for example, or you may notice the ability to muster that energy, because this is the sign of power in Leo. So this is where you get to understand that power. And so then you'll also notice perhaps that I have Magha Nakshatra, so I've definitely noticed these things. You'll also notice that there are some of the 7 great rishis whose work, their books and things, like Rishi Kashyapa, or the names are escaping me now, but the 7 great rishis that you'll see in the Vedas are often the ones that cognize particular sections of the Vedas. But you might see a connection to that. You might see the Yoga Vasishta, which comes from, Rishi Vasishta. So you might see a certain kind of connection or understanding, a deep understanding that connects to your power and how you see your lineage. And certainly it will deal with your family as well. So in addition to all this, the Adityas themselves are the carriers of the lineage, and they populate this section of the zodiac. So the Adityas, if you remember, they're all suns. They're all energies that are related to the sun, when we talked about that in the last session last week. So when you see the Adityas showing up in the story, you'll see that that sun energy comes there. And here it's quite appropriate in the sign of Leo, which Magha is the first nakshatra that clearly begins at the first section of Leo. So this is all about establishing the king, establishing the royal bloodlines, having the court, having the power brought forward. So this is, a very important thing, and having the celestial lights of the Adityas present for that. So, so there's a famous story about Lord Shiva in his fierce form as Virabhadra, and he comes to disrupt the fire ceremony and injure the gods in attendance. And many of those gods were in this section of the sky. You'll learn a little bit more about him in the next nakshatra. Here he's approaching that gathering of people. In the next nakshatra, there's actually some force that happens that really shows Shiva's energy. So these first stars, as I said, they place the king squarely on the throne. So let's say, for example, if you have sun in your chart and it's in Magha, it basically shows you are the king. Because it's sitting in the first part where the sun is what's called Mula Trikona. Now, I like to think of Mula Trikona as even more powerful than exalted sun, because in the exalted sun, you're radiating out that energy. You're showing your power in a radiant way. But with Mula Trikona, you're connected to the root. So think about this like you're essentially connected to the feet of that royal lineage. And as you see Mula Trikona of different planets in your charts associated with nakshatras, for example, you're going to see the connection to the depth of that understanding. So here, if you have Sun in Mula Trikona in Leo, it's very powerful energy connected directly to that root source of power, which is very much that connection to this royalty. And you'll notice this in your life, that you'll have this natural generosity. I always like to refer to the different types of kings who lorded over everybody in the past. And also the other thing to know is that in the ancient Vedic times, only the kings had this knowledge of transcendence, and everyone else didn't have access to that knowledge. So when you read in the Vedas, you'll see a lot of these kings, they literally are like the siddhas and the perfected beings of their kingdoms. That was supposed to be their goal. Now, if you haven't ever read Ashtavakra Gita, you should get a copy of it and read it. It's a very profound story because it tells a story about a king, King Janaka, who's one of the most renowned kings in the Vedas. King Janaka was always doing his practices. He was considered to be probably one of the more enlightened, brightest of the kings, and very generous. So there's three types of kings we can have. The one that like walks into the room and throws their arms in the air and said, "Hey everybody, I'm here." That's a king that's, very much focused on himself. It's very much a tamasic kind of energy saying, "Hey, look, I'm here, we can start things going." Then you have the other type of energy, which is more like King Janaka, which says, the whole kingdom belongs to all of us. And if you need anything, just come to me and I will make sure you get it. That generous nature, that this belongs to everyone. And as a king, you are a servant to the people. You are not the person where they need to serve you. And you can see this energy showing up in the world big time right now, everywhere, all around the world. People are pushing back on the power structures. Magha deals with a lot of these people who think they're kings, who think they're here to dictate, as an example. That's one of the more shadowy sides of Magha. But you can have this person who also expresses the energy like, "Hey, come on over, the kingdom's here for all of us to enjoy, but hey, don't forget, it's my kingdom." So you have these three types of expressions that show up here. And so what you'll see is this, you're actually seated, if you have that placement in the very beginning in Magha, and you may have other planets in Magha as well, which sort of indicate the role that you're going to play in that kingdom. So like if it's Mercury, Mercury's the little prince and he's the one that helps everybody. If it's Venus, it could be, the harem as an example, or it could be the artists and the dancers and expressions like that in the kingdom. But when it's the sun, it shows that you're the king of your world and you're the one that has to decide how you are going to lord over that world. And the energy that comes from Cancer across that Gandanta point into Leo, these are the family people. This is the family connection to all of those people. They're also in your kingdom. And all of the friends and people like that you love and that you are connected to through the heart. Those are the first subjects in your kingdom. So when you're looking at this, it shows the king isn't elected. His power comes from lineage and succession. So similarly, our power, same thing, came from the family. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. But it also comes from the universe. This is the cosmic energy. And so in this way, the celestial teachers who are the rishis, they're our divine family. And we also have to be careful with the abuse of power and entitlement in Magha, because, you know, you're that light, you're that power, you're the one without a second, because the sun rules that sign of Leo. But Ketu is the ruler saying, okay, all of your past life knowledge has some value here. And actually, you may notice if you're active doing readings with people and you have Magha Nakshatra, you'll get through talking about a whole bunch of things, and there'll be a flow of information that'll come to you through that K2 connection. At the last minute, you'll just say, I don't know why, but I'm being kind of moved to tell you this. And if you're having that experience, don't get in the way of it. Don't second guess it. Just express it. Express it according to how you were taught to do your readings. And what you'll see is people there'll be a surprise reaction to that energy. So you can abuse the power by thinking that you know it all. You can open that power up by expressing that to the people so they can see the richness of that Magha in their own charts. So the true power is in cultivating a relationship with that primordial essential nature. So here you have the whole power source, which never dies. You know, this is that element of the self that when the body wears out, everything, that coat drops off, but that light inside doesn't go anywhere. And I have a personal experience where I was killed in a car accident at 19 and came back to life. And it's very much an experience of this. You realize that you're not seeing the whole picture of everything. There's something much more metaphysical going on behind the scenes. And I have my son Mula Trikona in Magha, and it's my 8th house, which deals with all those sudden shocking kinds of things. So these are things where you can see literally this primordial power. I have no idea why I didn't die that day. But I know when I went across the barrier to the other side, you see the kingdom of light. You see what the truth is. And it's not what you're looking at. It goes beyond it. It's a cosmic primordial structure. So when you do this, you become the king of the eternal territory of time and space. Rather than, you know, a lot of times we waste our life looking around to control a small parcel of earthly land. And when I used to study with the Maharishi, he used to talk about, you know, the king would come and invite this person from the kingdom to come live in the court, come and live in the kingdom. And the person couldn't give up his hut. Oh, my hut, my hut, my hut, my little hut. And here you have all this magnanimous energy that's calling you into life to express this part of your life, which is lit up and inspired and optimistic and powerful and generous. And, you know, you can be overpowering if you're the sun, especially in Leo, you know, the seat of the power. So the true power is cultivated through that relationship with that primordial energy. That's really important, and being connected to everything. Don't see yourself as just this body. In Magha is where you can express that extent that goes back for thousands and thousands and thousands of generations. You're that energy. You are the king of your world. So how are you going to lord over that? Are you going to be one of these ones that says, hey, I'm the king, get out of my way? Are you going to be the one who says, I'm the king and don't you forget it, but, you know, let me know? Or are you going to be Janaka, which is, belongs to all of us. And if you need anything, anything's missing, I'll help, I'll just get it for you. So this point of ancestry is so important here. And as the basis above, it's mourning without having that. If it's the basis below, it's leaving the body. And these together bring about the death in our life. And K2 is that thing that will eventually, it can take you out of this world because it doesn't want to be here. It doesn't want anything to do with the world. It wants to suck the life out of the world. So you can see Magha showing ruled by the ancestors. And if you're spending too much time, thinking you're above it all, that can just lead to mourning because you're not achieving that ultimate expression of who you are. And so the basis below is leaving the body. Tyage Shipani Shakti, the departure of the soul from this outer covering. So that's what Magha will show you. So when we look at Magha, there's some interesting things about it. First of all, when we go down and look at the force behind it, the nature is fierce and severe. And whenever we're dealing with things of power, we're dealing with that. I don't know what happened to the slides, but it just decided to jump out of it. Okay. So that you'll see the fierce, severe nature that is certainly in the first section of it. So Magha shows that connection to the family, tradition, all those things we talked about. The seven great Saptarishis, they're the regents of the 7 stars of the Great Bear in Orion's belt, for example. So this has a lot to do with the sun because it's said according to the Vedic Nakshatras, but also the Vedic lore. When we talked about Kritika, it talked about the sun being nurtured and growing up in Orion. And so here you see that link to the 7 great stars. There were the Sapta Rishis as those, but we also had the Kritikas who were there, which were the wives of those rishis. But here we're talking about the version of the Sapta Rishis and not of the wives. So in addition, you can see here that it's the same nature as the angels of all the planets, all the sort of mystical energies associated with each of the planets. Or it could be directly the energy of the planetary spirits of those 7 great rishis. So in addition to the Adityas, who were the carriers of the lineage, and they populated this section of the zodiac, there's a famous story of Lord Shiva, as I mentioned before, who comes to this fire ceremony. And we'll get to that in a moment, but it actually was the ceremony related to his marriage and to Parvati and what took place before he arrived and the discussions and the gossiping that were going on in the group. So what you'll see is many of these gods are in this section of the sky. This is the section of power and lineage. So the thing that's important to see is that it's directly on the seat of the power in Magha. The king is an elected that comes from the lineage, and all your power and life comes from the universe itself, which also gave birth to your family, which brought you here. So in this way, the celestial teachers, they're your divine family. And you can feel that connection here. So when you read the text that I put together with the sort of way of looking at this in a reading or in a forecast, for example, you'll see all these themes of your power and recognizing it, not using it foolishly in a selfish manner. In Magha, you have to be directly connected to the lineage, and you wouldn't see that kind of action flowing from the power seat. So that's a very important thing. We can see all that coming from all of the universe and these celestial teachers and the true power. So the power itself, if you're not cultivating that relationship with your primordial power, you're missing that connection here. So this is where it's really important, because only the kings did their practices. This is where, if you want to establish your power on a deeply soul level, spiritual level, to expand your soul and grow forward. And this goes into the, the hero's journey, where we look at the sun in our chart, and we look at that transcendent, soulful purpose for which we're here in this life. That's all honored and brought out here. So the first thing you will notice is that you might be looking around for a king, but you are the king. You're in charge. It's your kingdom. And so those decisions are very important on how you're going to make that decision. And what we usually do is we spend way too much time looking at all the small things in our life instead of looking at it from the larger perspective. And so putting on any kind of resistance to becoming the light, to coming into the moment and epitomizing the soul energy that is who you are, that is the most important thing of Magha. Realizing you are the light, you are the source of power, you are the thing that has been coming back generation after generation after generation. And that's what the energy of Magha shows. Now, it has this fierce, severe energy because the king is, personified or seen as the lion. And when you look at the characteristics of the lion, you'll see a lot of things about the king. First of all, they have a lot of pride, which is they have this pride for the family, because the pride is the family. The lioness and the cubs, they're all called the pride. And if you watch the interactions between the lions and the lioness, you'll see the stature of the lion will always look fierce and severe. But they don't usually go and kill something unless they're hungry. So this is the energy to understand of this lion. How do they express themselves? Well, their growl is much worse than their bite. And most of the time they're prancing around, showing that off. That's for show, to keep everyone back. There's this sort of crazy energy about it, that Rakshasa energy, which shows that potential for being somewhat eccentric, which most kings are. And that Rakshasa thing, they can stir up a lot of mischief. So you can see that in the lion, because what he'll do is he'll go kill something and drag it over, and the whole family will eat it. And then after he's done eating, he's just laying there relaxing, digesting his food. So after he's eaten, he's not coming looking for anything. They don't express that fierce nature, but you'll see them grooming themselves. And as you know, through Leo energy, big manes of hair and things like that tend to be prominent in the sign of Leo, depending on where it is in your chart and things like that. But you'll see there's an importance with Leo energy, especially Leos themselves. You'll see that proud mane, just like that. So you'll see this energy of the lion being expressed through Magha. So the strengths and the weaknesses of that. So you'll see that family orientation, that love of tradition, and the people that come before you and how you refer to them, even when you're talking about them in your life. Oh, my great grandfather used to do that. Or so you also have a commanding regal presence. It easily yields respect and honor. People, when they see that energy expressed in their life, you'll see the response of the people around you and how they treat you in that sense. So you're also ambitious and idealistic, and you have that big-hearted nature for all those people you love, especially your family. I've had people with Magha Nakshatra talk about sometimes they feel like their heart is going to burst when they're around somebody, because they feel that big-hearted, that nature of love, and it can overwhelm you. And that deep connection to the family. In my family, every single one of us, every one of the children, were born in Magha Nakshatra. We have some planet there. And except for my oldest brother, who's a Taurus. And every single one of us, except my brother, follow the same sort of spiritual path. He's got his own. Uh, and it has to do with his Rohini moon. You can't tell him anything. But he's a wonderful guy. He's just not connected to the lineage. You never hear him talking about any of it. He doesn't refer back, and he wasn't treated all that well by the lineage when he was growing up by my dad. Great musician, a great intelligent person, but father would say, yeah, you're not going to make any money doing that. So just that kind of energy. So you can also, you'll notice how you easily maintain a connection to all the universal principles of spiritual liberation. You're compelled, depending on where this is in your chart, you'll be compelled to like really get deep into the knowledge, to explore it, to see what the light really is all about. On the shadowy side, you may tend to be a little bit orthodox and have narrowness of vision, since it's a fire sign here we're talking about, and also the scrutiny of Ketu behind it. Placing your set of teachings and philosophies above all others, can lead to your fundamentalism. And also that you have to watch clannish behavior, looking, to simply maintain your own personal kingdom and legacy rather than extending it to the family and to everyone in the world, always being open and worldly. The third one is high ambitions and standards. They also make you a perfectionist, and you have to, you have you're setting unreal expectations for yourself and others in that situation, because you just feel all that over optimism and that K2 perfectionism. But when you go out with that perfectionism and start examining everything, you begin to see that a lot of your expectations are they're not real. They don't meet up to the perfection and the scrutiny of the eye of K2 looking at it. So that's Magha. Now, it's the 10th nakshatra of the zodiac, and as I said, it sits in the first 4 stars of Leo, which marks that placement. So it shows that you have a focused, directed mind. It's one that's really well suited to critical thinking and introspection, and the symbol being the throne, palanquin, and the royal court. Now, there's a couple interesting things of this, and I like to pay attention to the numbers because, here it is in the 5th sign, but it's the 10th nakshatra, which is about impacting the world. That when you look at 10th house issues, they're about worldly issues and what's our purpose in that. It's related to our career, but our career is not our job. It's how we impact the world and what our purpose is in how we do that. And so you can see in that 10th nakshatra that sort of echo of Magha being all about those kinds of things, impacting the world, and how do you do it? And since it's the 5th sign, when we look at Leo alone, we look at the leadership that is connected to our power. We look at that things that we inspire and uplift other people, but we can also overpower them, burn them, and become domineering with our energy. And so this is where what we want to do is allow our warming soul's light to shine out and illuminate and uplift others rather than overpowering and burning them. So when we look at it as the fifth sign, it's related to those things that are like fifth house energies. Like you notice the lion cares very much for its pride. So here are as the fifth sign, we see heart's desire. We see second dharma with the fifth house, because that's where we learn. We're separating from our own self-knowledge and starting to learn through interacting with other people. And so those are the creative things we do in this world that we do with others, and maybe because others inspire us to do that. So one of the things that most people want to do when they have peace in their heart through their fourth house is they want to create something with that. And a lot of people just create children. That's one of the most that's one of the biggest heart's desire of a lot of people. And what we learn through the fifth house is that the things we love the most, the things that we create, like our passions, are the source of our greatest intelligence. And so intelligence is involved here because education also happens in the fifth. We educate others and we educate ourselves. And one of the things we educate ourselves about is higher knowledge, which is related to mantras and past life merit. Like if we're able to get initiated into some amazing techniques, for example, we can give that tribute to that energy of this fifth sign. This is a great place to have the light shine and go deep into our spiritual practices, reap our past life credit, the ability to even be around great teachers, for example, to be around people that represent knowledge in a very high dignified way. So, and this gives us the ability to manifest and give birth to our ideas. So the main characteristic of this when we look at it is it has a large universal nature. So Leo is what's called a large sign, which means you want to do something exciting and you never do anything small here, just like a king. You know, you have that overbearing, domineering energy of leadership and that confidence and power and the sight and the clarity of vision. This is how I want to build my kingdom. And then we radiate that generosity out to everyone and that soulful energy through the sun. We, as the king, become that father energy that gives rise to all of that. We are that one without a second. And that shows the connection to that deep understanding of what lights up our life, what gives us the power to follow our heart's desire. So with the ruling sun, this is the soul, this is integrity. This is where we have to purify ourselves. So this is related to the, you know, to our pranayama, our asanas, our meditation, and you know the spiritual rituals that we conduct in our life if we have them. So these are the things that bring honor and confidence and allow us to understand that we're not just the king, we're here to serve the kingdom. And that should give us that self-growth that we need through that inspired optimism instead of that growth of ego. Now, this ego can be quite demonstrative here in Leo, but we can also look at it more as the I am presence. I exist. I'm here. I am. And so that ego is much more about getting comfortable with where you've manifested in the world. And the best use of it, the highest expression, is recognizing, I exist. I am here. So that helps you establish the power, which is connected to your leadership. Are you going to just, you'll notice in this energy, you'll just lead with ideas. You'll see all of these connections. You'll have connections to all kinds of people. And the cultural heritage that sustains you through those connections will help you get through the ups and downs in life and how difficult that can be. So this is the power seat. in the form of the seat of power. And with the Petries as the divine ancestors, they're also the celestial guardians of the earth and the cosmos that keeps all the universal laws of Dharma operating in the times of calamity and stress. When you're running a kingdom, there's always going to be ups and downs. It impacts the whole world. So what the deities do is they help maintain the relevance and the continuity of that ancient wisdom with modern thought and application. So you can get stuck in these nakshatras trying to legitimize them according to the way they're expressed. But there's also that last thing with the Petri says, look, you're part of the lineage. You contribute to the thought and how this gets applied. So a lot of times when I'm talking about the nakshatras with people, they get too worried about how to express that. And you'll notice if you have Magha in your chart, some of the nature of your understanding will come out through that. And I express it in my nakshatra readings. And I encourage you, if you have Magha or you see some with Magha, that you connect them to these celestial energies in their life because they may not realize how important it is. I have a lot of people that come from one spiritual tradition, and a lot of Maghas show up in their lives. So let's move on now to Purva Phalguni, because we have some examples of that here. And Purva Phalguni is called the previous red one. And I remember when I first started studying this one, I was like, what the heck does that mean? So what I began to do some background digging. So Purva means the previous or the earlier, and Phalguni relates to that. In some cases, they talk about it like having a fig in the palm of your hand, but when it's translated into the red one, you have to dig in and look at the color of red and how that's related to royalty and to passion. And so what you see here in Purva Phalguni is that affection and passionate nature of Leo that can also be lazy and vain. So the deity here is Magha, and we're getting into the story of what I was talking to you about. So Magha is called the god of delight, and you want to have delight, all the earthly delights in the kingdom. And of course, the ruler is Venus, which is all about pleasure, beauty, love, sensuality, and all those other things that come from Venus that bring comfort, and manners, as well as, that sort of shallow expression, because we're dealing with a large group of people. All this is possible. And the symbol is the front legs of a cot, a hammock, or a stage. And, you can kind of think of it as the cat in the hammock, because here you are, that's the lion, and they're expressing the love. This is all about where you're courting the members of the kingdom to fall in love with the kingdom. And so there's a fierce and severe nature. And because you're running into all kinds of people that you're trying to get into the kingdom, and some of them you may have to get severe with because of just this. It's all about power, letting them know who the power is. The race that's associated is Manusha, which means like beautiful beings, very powerful, beautiful beings. The animal is the rat, and the only thing I can think about of the rat is they're all over the place. They're hidden around in corners watching what's going on, and they're always invading the larder and different things like that in the kingdom. And you can imagine if you're courting people in the kingdom and having them fall in love with the kingdom, you're going to be providing them with those valuable things so that they can enjoy the kingdom. That's the Venus energy. Find comfort, enjoy, good food, all of those things is part of that energy. Now, when we go back to the symbol, the legs, the front legs of a cot, hammock, and the stage, all of that, you can see that in the Leo, the lion. Like when he rises up and he wants to express himself, it's like he takes the stage and he'll let out his roars and everything like that. But this again, the cot and the hammock, what you'll notice if you go back and look at some of the royalty and the lineages of kings, they weren't always working. You know, when they were done in the court, they would go, you know, have their lunch or meal, and then they would lay on a couch and digest that food. But it also shows that you don't have to work all the time. It's not always work. You have to rest. And many times these cots are related to meditation couches as well, like a bench or something. So you can see that connection back to the deeper sort of spiritual understanding, which is related to love. So Bhaga was gathered with many of the Adityas at this yagya for Daksha. This was Lord Shiva's father-in-law. And so Lord Shiva was, they were making fun of him. Ah, look at him. It's just like his hair is dirty and knotted, and all he wears is a loincloth. He's mostly naked. He's got all these ashes on him. And they were making fun of him like that. And, you know, Bhaga was one of the prime most ones of them. He turned his eye towards Daksha and he winked at him in agreement with what Daksha was saying, and Daksha was really slandering Lord Shiva, just giving it to him. So Shiva shows up and he catches the wink between Daksha and Bhaga, and he took revenge on them in that attendance. So first thing he did is he gouged Bhaga's eyes out because of the wink. So often we experience a lot of joy and delight, it's through our eyes. And when we're fire signs, we're digest the world through all of our senses, but it's mostly the eyes. And fire signs have clarity of vision and seeing. So we love to look at and savor all the beautiful things and experiences, but we may also be envious or built up of a lot of attachments based on what we see. So not only did he gouge out Bhaga's eyes, but he knocked out Daksha's teeth. And what you'll see later when we get to Pisces and Revati, you'll see both of these energies will show up again, Bhaga and also Daksha. So in practice, this is ruled by Bhaga, one of the Adityas, god of delight. And what it means is it's good to be king, you know, but there's a heck of a lot of duties and responsibilities that have to be performed, hopefully in humility and service to the kingdom rather than our selfish desires. So the generosity of being like a good king and sharing all the spoils of wealth and everything with everybody, that's important here. So the potential for laziness and abuse of power is also seen because it's existing side by side with this enormous generosity and love for all. Like, for example, one of the cases is that you may have a huge feed for everyone, and everyone eats all that food, and you know you're the king, and you probably enjoying just as much as they are. And here, all of a sudden, what happens is you get sleepy and you might fall asleep and become lazy, and everybody doesn't know what to do next. They're in the kingdom, as an example of that. So this is known as the star of courtship, and it refers to the levels of joy and earthly delight that you see here. So you'll notice in your chart, if you have Purva Phalguni in it, that you know it has to do with love and beauty and all of those enjoyment things that we hook our Venus hook onto. And you know, several of you in your charts have this. We have for Melanie, she has Rahu in her with Purva Phalguni. It's in her 10th house. and she's a Scorpio. And we have Adriana has her moon and Ketu in her second house, both in Purva Phalguni. And let's see who else has one. We have Vicky. Vicky has Saturn and Sun, both in Leo, her third house. She's a Gemini ascendant. And she has her Saturn in Magha. And she has her Sun in Purva Phalguni. So that it would be interesting to hear from her what's going on. Amanda also has Mars in her sixth house. She's a Pisces in Purva Phalguni as well. And out of the charts, those are the ones right now that that I have who actually have Purva Phalguni. Now it's here in Purva Phalguni that you fall in love with the kingdom. The king courts you and you fall in love, but it's in the next nakshatra where the star is the star of marriage. So you get courted in Purva Phalguni, and then I don't know what's going on here with the slides are jumping out. And you fall in love with the kingdom. You get asked to be married through that period of time, and then the marriage star happens in Uttara Phalguni. And so here, what we're dealing with all of these things that have to be done in the kingdom, and there's just no way the king can do them all, you know. So what you need to do is they start to court people to do different tasks, and they become the many servants in the kingdom, and they help get these things done. And it's delightful. People feel like they're contributing to the kingdom. And so this is that sense of courtship. So this is, I don't know why I put Aryaman in here. It was by accident. Purva Phalguni is ruled by Magha. So ignore all of this stuff here because I think what I did is I created the next slide and I used it to build this slide and forgot to take Aryaman out of there. Aryaman is the deity that rules in the next nakshatra. So the whole idea here is to revel in sort of that garden of earthly delights, and for everyone to be delighted with the kingdom and see it as part of their whole. And everyone wants to take action and do something in that kingdom. So the king needs to delegate things, and it's in Purva Phalguni that they recognize there's a lot of stuff to do here and I can't do it all, even though it's my kingdom. So Magha really begins to provide the energy as that aditya, that is that light about how to enjoy the kingdom by taking a role in being responsible for that kingdom. And so everyone becomes a subject that's part of the king, part of the whole lineage of the king and the kingdom. So the strengths here of Purva Phalguni is that you have a natural zest for life and a high capacity to celebrate and enjoy everything that the world has to offer. And that natural zeal and enthusiasm, that becomes the catalyst, of all the creative endeavors that you do for yourself and for others. And so it's about selling that vision to the people. And there's such a natural virility and charisma and charm. It becomes contagious as a strength here. So that makes somebody popular and attractive, as you're generally prone to have a sweet disposition. See, that Venus comes right out in the middle of that fiery sign and shows that there's some brightness to all of the love in the courtship that goes on here. Now, in the shadow issues, you have to be careful of, being too caught up in hedonism and sensuality and all the materialism, all those things. which is, your connection to all the worldly pleasure, the wealth, the luxury. It's a gift to be enjoyed, but it can become an addictive drug as well. So you have to be careful as you're enjoying all that sensuality and the materialism that can flow from it, that you realize, it's just all stuff. It's just all it's part of the illusion. And in this particular set of nakshatras in Leo, we can get pretty fixed to things being the way they are, because Leo is a fixed sign and doesn't like to change. And with all that light and generosity and power there, it's very easy to get sort of inward directed towards yourself and believing that all that stuff is real. And the sooner you adopt the Vedic understanding that Parashara tells us, which is none of this is real, it's all an illusion, you just came here to observe it, the easier your life will become. It doesn't mean you don't do anything, because things will happen, but you don't have to do anything. You're not here as a doer. You're not here to add more karma to it. You're here to experience what you didn't get the results of from the last life. So you might be prone to, shallow displays of vanity and, showy self-image kinds of stuff, and start manipulating others for your own personal gratification, or, inflate your ego to be bigger than the world. All that stuff is possible in this particular nakshatra. So when we throw it all together, here we are in the 11th nakshatra, the zodiac, and this one sits at the heart of Leo. And it, as the earlier red one, it means these are the dignitaries who were first part of the kingdom. They are the ones who came first. It's about the royal courtship of others in that kingdom of power and love, and knowing when to work and when to relax, when to meditate, and when to be active. So Purva Phalguni, ruled by Venus, it shows that comfort, sensual, possibly indulgent nature, and the ability for laziness to come in through the course of your life. And that's where the cat in the hammock comes in. Because if you have a cat and you have a hammock in your house, the cat will be in it most of the time, as an example of that, because it wants to just relax and enjoy life as it is. So being that fifth sign, all those things that we talked about before are really, very, very key. There's a relaxed, carefree, breezy approach to life that happens here, because, it's easygoing. It's where you want to fall in love with those things. So that allows for your triumphs and the troubles to be both, effortlessly harmonized, because you can relax into the greater dance of life. Venus isn't, you don't have to take things, so seriously. You can have enjoyment in your life, and Venus is that energy that brings that for us. And that is the beauty, comfort, pleasure, and all those compromises we have to make in our life, which are all related to comfort with Venus. And so here's where my Magha shows up correctly. The god of delight, the celestial brothers who endow and protect all the earthly life. And he teaches that life is delightful and it's splendorous and we should enjoy it. We can enjoy it through the witness, just like we do any movie that we're watching. So he gives you that desire to experience that, the sensual gratification, the luxury of life, and for some people that comes as romance. Romance isn't always related with a relationship. Things can be very romantic and they can romance you and they have nothing to do with somebody else there. But in this type of courtship, that's what eventually leads to marriage. So the deeper lesson shows the capacity to transform your worldly desires into bigger dimensions that are otherworldly. This is that you can see the celestial energy all active through these nakshatras. And as you see, we've moved from the mundane kinds of things of forming a family, birthing children, learning how to live together, all those things that flow up to that the connections that we have, like in Ashlesha, that just sort of wrap our lives up in all those things and become chaotic dark nights of the soul. Then we move into the light and we really begin to sort of mature into the world and step up to those bigger, larger things of life that impact everybody and enjoy it, that deeper lesson of realizing that it's not just this world, it's what brought this world into existence. And so that healthy association with that kind of wealth and being responsible with that is also being cultivated here. It's a great expression of that. So next we go into Uttara Phalguni. Now this is the later red one. What's interesting about this is that once the kingdom is set up and you have all this royalty and they're teaching people things, helping them fall in love with the ancient knowledge of the rishis and delving into all that stuff, you have these later people who get educated through that process, and their job is to take that knowledge and continue to bring it to others in the world, to teach it to others. And so this is where the orderly official nature of Leo and gets structured into all kinds of forms, contracts, and things where the power gets organized and systematized, just like in a marriage contract. You know, you date somebody for a while, you decide you love everything about them, you go, you know, get the marriage contract, you sign that, and then you marry them, you make that commitment to them. So this is related to this deity Aryaman. So Aryaman, another one of the Adityas, but he's known as the official person of contracts. So imagine you're in the kingdom and you have all these people that have fallen in love with it, and they're all saying, you know, what can I do? And remember, there's so many tasks that they got to be delegated. So Aryaman is the person that delegates the tasks, and then he signs the official contracts with them. He makes sure all that stuff happens. And so this is in the juncture of Leo into Virgo. And so Virgo is where we're very fastidious, and we deal with all of the details. And Virgo is where all the laws of nature reside. And so there's a lot of power here once you make the contract to be able to have things happen for yourself. And so Aryaman was the protector of the mares, and his path was said to be the Milky Way. And he was often involved with the god of friendliness, Mitra. And so he's responsible for all the things that are proper, official, like marriage and all the contracts that we do in life. And you know, courtship takes place in Purva Phalguni, but that marriage happens with the marriage star here in Uttara Phalguni. And so, as I said, a kingdom takes a lot of work to maintain it. And this is the concentration point in the nakshatras in this region of the sky, which is about power and putting that into an official structure of business, work, delegating all the details, which is a very Virgo-esque kind of thing. And so that means if you're going to establish a contract, you need to do that with amity and friendliness. You don't grab somebody by the shirt collar and pull them over and say, here, sign this contract and get to work. There is that expression of friendliness that everybody wants to contribute, wants to serve and get involved in the kingdom. And so this is why Aryaman is often depicted with the god of friendliness of Mitra. And like in a marriage, all these contracts are founded with the intention of concentrating our creative joy into a powerful structure that becomes, a family, becomes a marriage. And this is the nakshatra where the power of Leo filters into all those detailed tasks of Virgo. So with Aryaman as an aditya, another light source, he's the god of those contracts and all the unions that get pulled together, the groups of people. And so the power is in the giving of prosperity, which is called Chayani Shakti, through marriage or through union, bringing people, teams of people together. And so the basis above is that wealth that you gain from your own family, and the basis below is the wealth that comes and adds to that from your partner. And these together bring about the accumulation of your wealth. And so Aryaman is often invoked with Mitra as that god of friendliness, and you will see Mitra show up later in the nakshatras. So when we look at the strengths and weaknesses of Uttara Phalguni, what we see is you'll be a good business person, and you'll have a keen stability, strike deals and satisfy all the parties in the agreement. And others will look to you to be like a leader, a moderator in all the matters that you inspire, and they will trust in your confidence. They see that in you. The second thing is that you're just naturally pleasant, generous. You have a humble nature that takes you far, and it allows for success in business and in all your personal relationships. Your emphasis on formal education also earns high marks in the eyes of others when appropriate. So what you'll see in Uttara Phalguni, if it's in the first section of Virgo, you'll see a lot of people focusing on higher education. Virgo tends to show where people go and get graduate degrees, and because everything is much more discerning, and you have to be a little bit more dispassionate and be able to like take a step back and really focus in on the details of the world and whatever that subject is. So you can see that carrying over here into one of the strengths that Uttara Phalguni shows. It also shows, you come from that lineage, and if you look back to the lineage and you have this one connected in it, it shows how that's one of the later benefits that come to you in your life. And after you've been trained in all of these things, then it's your responsibility as the later red ones to make sure everybody in the world experiences that. So this is particularly seen when it comes to the spiritual techniques and stuff that get passed down from the king. As the kingdom began to grow, it grew in the court first, and then it started to, those people who learned those rules went out and taught it to the people. They were the later red ones who came. They're the ones who also connected to the Magha lineage, but they came through the procession of time. So the shadow issues are that you might become too dependent on the relationships and your associations with others. And so that can lead to isolation and depression when you're not involved in any kind of meaningful relationship or partnership. So when you attempt to fix or moderate them and they fail, this is a characteristic of the shadow side of this. It can also lead to codependency and maybe giving too much to the other person, or giving too much criticism and taking on a martyr complex if you're not careful. And others may take advantage of you around your generosity and your service orientation, and your great financial resources, especially if you're willing to share it with everybody else. So you can look at that as a shadow issue if you're not aware of it. If you're being generous and you have lots to give and share, Virgo is that area where things just happen. because all the laws of nature are there. You don't have to do anything. You go into the details and you see all these things that happen. So as the 12th nakshatra, you can kind of see there's a little bit of an area where you kind of have to let go. You have to surrender, you know. And so after you signed all the contracts and you have all these people moving through, and the later red ones are continuing to pass the traditions down, your responsibility can also let go a little bit. But you can also connect back to your cosmic self. So 12th, 12th sign, 12th house, as an example, all those things are about where we go into that deeper dream state. We go into our practices more. We really implement them. And 12th house has to do with that. Also the deeper mysteries. And those things, when we go into that dream state, that meditation state, connect to the cosmic self, the confusions that we have start to clarify as we begin to see through our practices that all of these subconscious and unconscious patterns start to get released as we do the practices. And that relates itself to this 12th sign. And you see this orderly nature of Leo and Virgo, and this is where you take all the power and organize it. And, you know, you can rest for your meditation. Don't spend all the time in the hammock. It's kind of hard to do that in Uttara Phalguni because the sun rules it. So we can't escape that power of the sun, which brings out our soul energy and all of our confidence and all those things of the light, those things that purify us and really bring out our radiance and our power in life. So being still in the 5th sign, bridging into the 6th, these are related to the things I talked about before. We have this creativity that we have, and then whatever we create brings out all this intelligence, and we have this passion for it and the heart's desire and all of that. And so those are the things that we don't mind working hard for. And so that shows that connection between the 5th sign, which is the light, and the 6th sign, which is about more of the details and the structures and the things that are down to earth and practical in life. So Leo being all about leadership, Virgo is all about responsibility, duty, you know, being alone and making sure that everything is pure and, you know, worrying about everything. So you realize that developing tolerance for your own imperfections and the imperfections of others is real true purification, because Virgo is always like disgusted. It can get really disgusted. What, you do that? You need to like be pure. And the sign of the Virgin, the sign of not allowing anything impure to come in. So in here in Uttara Phalguni, what you'll see is as these people are teaching this and spreading it through the, and everyone's starting to basically get married to the philosophy, to the whole structure of everything, that this is where you need to pay attention to all of the responsibilities of making sure people learn it and the teaching is pure. So in the 5th sign of the zodiac, that's where you're creatively expressing it and educating people, and you're like listening to the questions they ask and speculating on things. But the whole thing is really about the spiritual practices and the ability to give birth to those ideas as though they're your children. That whole creative nature of teaching it. The 6th sign is, you know, struggle and work. And think of like the 5th house going into the 6th house. If it's a child, you'll do anything for it. If it's a helpless animal, you'll be there for it. If it's your partner, you don't usually end up in love with unbounded love for the partner. There's always a contract there. You know, it's conditional. and you got to negotiate those terms on that. So Leo will provide that vision, clarity, and power, and Virgo takes care of all of the structures and the forms, and getting attuned to those things, getting aligned with the laws of nature, having more discrimination, discernment, and dispassion, so that you can handle these pure structures of nature and all their discerning ideas. And so the ruling planet of the sun gives you that power and radiance energy to do that. And the deity of Aryaman is responsible for the things that are all proper and official. So he's going to make sure in the light of the sun that everyone will put forth their growth and their efforts and their commitment to those things to really build out the difficult things that come once you marry yourself to something. So at this point, what I'm going to do is open it up to some questions, because we're at the very last part of it, and I've provided documents for each of these weekly slide sessions so that you can see how I would describe one of those nakshatras. But it would be nice if we have a couple of minutes here, because we're running a little bit ahead, to have a few of you talk about how you experience Purva Phalguni, and how you might experience Uttara Phalguni if you have that in your chart. Adriana has it in, she has Saturn in Uttara Phalguni in her chart. And so if we open up the mics, and if you'd like to speak up and talk about that, it would really, I think, be valuable for people to be able to hear what your direct experience is with your nakshatra. Who would like to share?
I would like to share. Kathy?
Okay, Kathy. So let me get your chart
Hi,
here.
I want to talk about, it's not about my chart though.
Okay, that's all right. Everything.
I've been able to study a friend that has Magha her moon in Magha in the 12th house. And I've noticed, this is regarding family lineage, and I wonder if you experience this at all. She's a very powerful woman, and her grandmother lost her husband through war. Her mother lost her husband through a car accident, and she lost her husband through incarceration. And I wonder if you've seen things passed down in family lineage. It's very interesting, something like that.
Yeah, no, this is a great question. Exactly. So look at the situation. Moon in the 12th. So that deep connection to that energy, being in her 12th house. And the 12th house is loss and liberation. It's also confusion. And with Ketu ruling Magha, it shows people being taken out of the world. That the detachment that happens in the 12th house is, you can escape into the world and fantasize and go into escapism through that, but you will definitely experience loss and liberation. So in many ways, you can see the line of losses that came as an example of it. And the fact that there were probably similar type of events that happened to the family as they went through that. So K2 would definitely show those things that being taken, that you're being detached from, they're detaching themselves from you. But you can see her power in the state of Magha, and her confusion going around with that And is she a spiritual person? Does she do any practices?
No, she's married to a very spiritual man that I helped get into meditation before he was incarcerated. It's a very interesting story, but um, she has abuse of power issues because her wonderful lineage was destroyed by him. So, I mean, there's some
Um,
really interesting stories I've been able to see regarding all this. You know what I mean? So she has this horrible abuse of power, and I can't say anything at all because I'm friends to both of them.
yeah,
I don't dare say anything, but I've had to watch this. And another thing I want to mention is the royal bloodline. Um, I don't know if you've studied blood types, but she has Rh negative in her chart, and some of the Rh negative, I don't know that much about it except that I've heard that the ancient alien people talk about it. It's a very rare blood
yes.
type, and it goes way back to a certain area, and she has that blood type, and she's super intelligent. Anyhow, I've been able to study her intensely. She's one of my best friends.
Yes. No, those
And
are
so that's why I wanted to know
exactly,
if you've seen things carried down.
yes, exactly what you said. The things about that different blood types coming from uh, off-world beings that may have populated the Earth, you know, millions of years ago, may have been involved in our taking form on this planet. Yeah, definitely, you see those kinds of things, and you can see the mixture of the different experiences that I talked about, which are the shadows and then the strengths that you can see show up in that. I mean, she has strength, but she because of that Magha energy of K2 makes her scrutinize everything else. So it could give her that sense of superiority, like the that K2 experience and just scrutinizing everything down to the tip of a pin, a little tiny pin, every little detail, for example, you'll see. Um, and because of it being the 12th house, I think there's probably a lot of confusion that she faces in her life. Does she travel a lot too around the world?
She's half American citizen. She travels to her country of birth at least once a year to spend
Yeah.
a month or whatever.
Yeah, so 12th house also relates to foreign travels and those kind of issues as well. So you can see them; they're actually in there. Now, watch. Obviously, does she have Purva Phalguni or Uttara Phalguni also, or is it just Magha alone?
It's just Magha alone.
Okay, so you can see the
Well,
power.
her ascendant. I
Her
think her
ascend.
ascendant could be uh, Purva Phalguni. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the chart in front of you to know.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, so if
But
her
anyhow, I
ascendant,
just wanted to ask you about that.
yeah, and if her ascendant was in Purva Phalguni, and maybe she's a Virgo, or um, she could be a Leo from that standpoint. But if she's a Virgo, you can see all the Virgo characteristics coming out there. Not being, scrutinizing things and not being willing to involve herself in some of those structures that it Virgo has a bit of that same scrutiny energy as K2 does. It's not as powerful, but it's very judgmental and critical, and all of that. So if she was a Virgo ascendant, I wouldn't be surprised about that. And being really kind of, full of emotion about that strength of who she is, that, and it's what she's doing is kind of affecting her. It's to the detriment of what she wants. She's putting all of that power. She's trusting much more in the world than she is in the metaphysical level. And in Magha, it's very important connecting into that higher spirituality. If she was my client, I would have told her that you should start meditating. Just by the fact that Moon is in the 12th, she has the potential for that kind of surrendered mind and also confused mind, but it's in a fire sign, so it's, she might have a tendency to boil over real easily and just let everything go, not really care one way or the other. That kind of, she wants to just escape it all. And so her partner goes into jail as an example of it. When you look at like Pisces, the 12th sign of the zodiac, that is one of the things. If you don't, because Mercury is debilitated there, and in Uttara Phalguni is where Mercury gets exalted. So when you look at like the Piscean energies for somebody, and where Mercury is debilitated, what you'll see is a lot of people escape from the world through going to jail. And when you go to a prison and you talk to the people, you say, what are you in here for? Oh, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. That's all a Mercury debilitated statement, which is they didn't really think things through thoroughly and they got caught. And so when you have that debilitated Mercury in Pisces as an example of that, you'll see people, they'll make up stories, and they're usually not very good stories, even if they're true. I always jokingly talk about Charlie Brown and the Thanksgiving or the Christmas show, where they're busy having fun, and then the parents come and it's like, you can't understand them. You can't understand what they're saying. You're better off not saying anything and just being quiet. So there's a little bit of that kind of energy that's related to her 12th house that is also, kind of plays in that whole thing. But you're exactly right. You see the core principles of the nakshatra, but you'll see it expressing itself all around. That's all Magha stuff. That's that energy of the shadow side coming out of her too. And a lot of times people that like Aries people and Leo people can become pretty, seated in themselves, and they don't even know they're doing it sometimes. It's just, they're just naturally that way. And Mars being the sign ruling Aries, you get these people, because it's the first sign, it's always about them. And it's not like they're trying to do something. They can't help it. Their very nature expresses themselves in a me first kind of way. And when you look at Leo from the perspective of Aries, it is the 5th sign of the zodiac, which involves, interacting on your second level of Dharma, your second Purushartha, which is all about working with other people and learning through that engagement with them. And then when you see somebody in that sign with that Magha energy expressing that nature, it's first of all, it's that Ketu, that withdrawal nature of the Ketu in it, which makes somebody say, I already know all that stuff. Ketu is what you brought with you, so I know that Rahu's what you want to learn in the world. So K2 is that person, I've already been there, I've done that. And she may just be stuck in that kind of nature, and it's bringing out a darker shadow issue of it. And because it's in the 12th house, you can see she's draining her energy with it and confusing herself even more about it, and probably emotionally having steamy sessions communicating with people about it as well. So that's a great example, Kathy. Thank you.
Well, this is Vicky,
Oh,
and I have
hi.
all three.
All right. Let's look at your chart.
I have all three. I have, let's see.
You have moon.
My sun is Purva Phalguni, my Saturn is Magha, and I have Mercury in Uttara Phalguni. And both of my children have Magha, and my granddaughter has Magha, and my son's wife has Magha.
Interesting.
And I was noticing that my son-in-law, my daughter's husband, has Purva Phalguni. And I find the whole thing to be very, very interesting based on that, because I know I've tended to be a Leo that it's not my ascendant. I'm a Gemini ascendant, but I don't like to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
I like to teach, but I don't like to be in the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to be recognized though.
Yes.
Don't ignore me, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you have a very powerful sun there with the Mula Trikona,
Yeah.
and you can see. Do you have siblings? Do you have a brother?
No, I had a sister. She has passed.
Well, and the other thing is you have the son of the sun with the sun. Saturn was born out of the sun, and those two coming together. Parashara says they both have the same kind of power, and Saturn is the only planet that can put pressure on the sun. So you can see your 8th and 9th house energy there. So there's a part of it you don't have any control over. And there's a part of it that also brings great wisdom to you out of it. And this being focused on your interests, in that third house kind of nature, it's like what you're asking right now, the interest in it. It's like really understanding what that nature is all about. And so can you explain more about, like, the Saturn energy is like the other people that you can't control coming into your domain.
Yes.
And so who would you say is that?
I've been a massage therapist for 32 years. So there's a lot of people that pass through my domain.
Yes, yes. And they want to be treated like kings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
generally do that, which is why I have very consistent client base.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, yes, this really did help a great deal, because I know my son is very, not son, S-O-N instead of S-U-N,
Yeah.
because his wife, who has also got a son in Magha, is very fundamentalist. So she and I have to hide who I am, because she can't handle, she's fundamentalist Christian and cannot handle what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just interesting, and he has to hide part of who he is, but he also has the Purva Phalguni.
Yeah. And you can see that Saturn in great enemy dignity, it just, that miserable, cruel feeling of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's cruel that you can't really speak, you can't shine your light on what your interests are.
Right.
It just, there may be a little bit of attendant fear and instability associated with that, because you have the 8th ruler in the 3rd, and 8th and 9th. So when you're talking about your higher beliefs, and and 8th is other people's values, and it's where we feel out of control, and we don't feel so stable. Except where you are right now in your life, you've kind of grown beyond that. You've evolved beyond that, because you can recognize it, and you're talking. You may have held that inside for quite a while and not wanted to express it at all. But
I generally, in fact, a lot of my friends are just shocked because I would talk metaphysics just about to anybody. And they didn't understand how I could do that because they couldn't get by with it. But I can't do it. I can't do it with my daughter-in-law if I want to have a relationship with my granddaughter, who also has Magha and Purva Phalguni, all in Leo.
a lot of power structures there, huh?
Yeah, lots of power structures, and I'd say power struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's the 3rd house, cruel house, it's like where it can get into ego kind of battles, or feeling that the ego's being attacked, all that stuff. And but as the fact that you're explaining it shows that you've learned how to contend with it, that what becomes so big earlier in life, which is all about me, and well, this is what I like to do, and I don't care what you think, and that's not coming out in this energy. But maybe when you were younger, you maybe were able to voice it, because as we're younger, we're in that protectionary stage where it's about us, and that rashness of I don't care if you like it or not, and you get your friends involved with it, and maybe your siblings involved in it.
Generally not. My sibling was Down syndrome and was not raised with me. It was in an era when they told him to put her into an institution.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I thought a lot of that Saturn had to do with her. She's younger.
Yeah.
It's 3rd house, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can see it in there, because as the 8th house, it was like you didn't have any control over it, and it's probably very scary when she was taken out of your life too.
It was very scary. And my parents told me that she had died, and I knew she hadn't.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you see all of it. It helps. It forms you. That's all I can say. It forms you.
Yeah. And listen to the way you're explaining the lineages and everything. There's that, you're not saying anything that's not of high integrity, and that expression of you dealing with this struggle, this issue that's really important to you in your life. But you're handling it in a Magha way. And you're also in a Purva Phalguni way too. It's like you're able to talk about it, but there's no vehemence in there. You notice in how you described it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't feel it's not worth it.
And that's the Magha thing. That's right. It's not worth it. It's just, and because our ego, as we grow, it's all about me, and then it becomes all about, well, I'm just kind of like I'm not really anybody. We go through that stage where the ego isn't so important to us anymore, and then at this point in your life, it's kind of like it's all apachaya stuff. So it's like, okay, you can talk about it openly,
Yeah.
and and it's like, okay, well, I'm just like everybody else. I'm no different than everybody else. I just have these things that show up in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
a great characteristic way of like embracing that nakshatra and speaking about it. And you know, the more you play around with that, it's and I don't know if you've ever had Akashic records readings or anything like that, but
Yeah.
if you have, they may have pointed out this connection to the royal lineage.
No, they didn't, but
Oh.
it has shown up astrologically. So
Yeah, it's definitely there. Well, thank you for sharing that. You also have the Uttara Phalguni in your
right.
form.
That's why I said I have all three.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you have to really. So tell me how you handle that. How do you handle the peace in your heart with all of that and your inner world?
It's a matter of not attaching.
Yeah,
One has to just not attach. And most of the people that I know don't quite understand how I do that, but it's like staying attached to outcomes doesn't work.
yeah. Well, you have Mercury exalted there. I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect any other thing coming out of you. That expression of it, and that also forms a very auspicious yoga as well, because it's your first ruler in the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hear it in the way you're describing it, and it's kind of like look at the friendly, official way that you described all this. That's that Mercury energy, the way all the intelligence, understanding all the details, and yet being able to realize that everything sort of has a place for everything. And it's like the job is to figure out how to get the ultimate peace from that, even though there's a lot of power struggles and other things that are involved with it because of the Uttara Phalguni and the sun energy. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, yeah, and that's very much the situation. And my biggest challenges these days is my in-laws, my daughter-in-law and my son-in-law. So
Yeah,
what can I say? You just learn to go with the flow.
yeah, that's your Jeshta, the Jupiter Jeshta there. Yeah, the wild animals and in-laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes. So what I really like about what you're doing is you're able to take the core understanding of the Magha and Purva Phalguni, the part of it that shows the love expression, and then all of the the structuring of all of those things so that you can at least have peace in your heart. And and you're using the maximum intelligence for it. So it's, yeah, but in Virgo, it's where we're never happy no matter what. I have Venus debilitated in Virgo as my ninth house, and I've learned that lesson all through life. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Vicki. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. Would anybody else like to share?
Hi, Jeff. I don't know why, but you don't have my chart up with you, but I have Uttara Phalguni and Purva Phalguni for moon. It's Susan.
Okay. Okay, I was looking on the list to see which one you are. Okay. I don't know if I have. Yeah, I don't have your chart. I only had about 1, 2.
I sent it before the class started.
Oh, it might have just gotten lost in my email. Sorry. I get like 350 emails a day, so.
Yeah. So I have Purva Phalguni in the 3rd house. And how that plays out for me is I have tons of ideas. I used to act when I was younger and I wanted to be an actor. But then I kind of like let that go and I got my bachelor's in psychology and then ended
Uh-huh.
up getting the higher education in school counseling.
Yeah. So, so in your third, what is the planet you have in Purva Phalguni?
The moon.
The moon. Okay. So second and the third. You're a Gemini?
Yeah, Punarvasu is my nakshatra.
Ah, yes, again the light. Yes.
And the ruler of the chart is in the 12th house in Rohini.
Ah.
So it kind of plays out where like my head is always on the clouds, you know?
Yeah, you're always like in some escapist kind of thing, you know? It's
Yeah, I'm a dreamer. I'm a philosopher. And, I meant to ask you, I wonder how, because in Jaimini astrology, my Dharakarka is Jupiter, and Jupiter is with Saturn in the fourth in Uttara Phalguni. So I was wondering if my spouse would therefore be something like Uttara Phalguni, right?
yeah. I wish I had your chart here. It makes sense what you're saying. Um, hmm. Hang on a second here. Let me grab my, see. I have my software in the background here.
At some point, I heard that having Venus in the 12th house kind of means that you have a failed relationship, at least one. And so
Um,
that did play out for me. So
yeah. Well, it also could be that your partner might be in a foreign country too.
right.
Um, depending on like where your Rahu and stuff is, it could also show that too. So give me your birth date information.
Oh God. May 12th,
All right,
1981,
1981. And the time?
9:54 a.m.
All right, which state?
I'm going to put it in the chat privately for you.
Okay. Is that the city? Okay, I see. Thank you. Uh-huh, here we go.
What system do you use? Do you use Cosmic Insights or something else? Parashara?
I use Parashara's light.
Yeah, okay.
It has all the Jaimini information in it as well. And as I keep the Jaimini Karakas and the Padas as part of my charts when I do readings for people. All right. Jupiter. Yeah, you have your seventh ruler in the fourth with the eighth. And it's in Uttara Phalguni as well. So do you have a partner right now?
No.
Rahu. Yeah, you definitely want one though, don't you?
Yes.
And you're a traditionalist.
I think so.
Yeah, that's nice. And you know that Rahu in the second can show also that the people, the kind of people you're interested in being with might also be from foreign countries. A lot of times I'll see Rahu, and when it's in the second, it's like your values and things like that, but it's also the people that you want around you. And in Cancer, that would definitely show a connection to some type of partner. Well, first of all, given what you gave me in the chart where you're born, everybody in the United States is a foreigner to you.
That's true.
So in that way, Rahu's that way. So eccentric types, for example, are you an eccentric type of person with your values and
I'm not sure. I think that inwardly I'm very, very different, but I may not look so different
yeah,
from the outside. Like my shell is pretty normal, but inside, like it's totally not of this world.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Yes. So let's see what other things are going on here. So how are you experiencing that fourth house now? It shows
I'm very isolated.
sensitivity. What's that?
Well, I'm very isolated.
Yeah.
So I'm basically, I tell people I'm always in my cave.
Yep. Are you in your cave because you're doing higher things or because you're hiding?
Both.
Well, and what do you do for work?
I'm doing readings and healings for people now.
Yeah, great. Well, you know, when you were talking about the education and all that stuff, Libra is definitely where most of the counseling happens.
Yeah.
And I see people, so I can see where you said you got that. Um, but also when you're home alone, um, what are you doing to transform yourself?
Um, I I think that's all I do is transform myself.
Are you doing like sadhana practices or you,
I'm doing Kriya Yoga
okay,
specifically, and I'm studying Theosophy,
okay.
so and astrology, of course.
Yeah. So both of those are eighth and ninth.
Yeah.
So the actual eighth house transformation, like look at the practices that you do that puts you in that sort of deepest state where maybe you're even communing with the laws of nature.
Yeah. And I've always been that way though.
Yeah.
I just didn't have anyone to kind of like guide me or teach me. I kind of had to learn everything on my own.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong connection to spirit. I always say spirit is my teacher.
Yeah. So, and you have the first and fourth house ruler in the 12th. I think when I look at this, your Venus is in its own place and your Mercury's neutral. Mm, yeah, I think that I know a couple other people that have pretty much the same planets. You know, Venus and Mercury are good friends anyway because they're always moving at the same pace through the charts. And they have them in the 12th house, and these are about relationships. You can look at it, people can say you lose the relationship, but I don't tend to look at it that way. Taurus it's 12th house, but it's also a connection to a hidden level of like heaven on earth. You know, that there's sort of an escapism into that feeling of heaven on earth. And I would say that you're looking for a partner who lives in a foreign country. You know, and you're in a foreign country from where you were born. So look for the kind of person that shares everything with you, that doesn't hide anything. Like it's Kritika energy, so they see behind the veils. And
Yes, but he would probably be very critical, I would imagine.
well, I think he would be liberating to you. Some of the ideas he would share with you would be in many ways liberating. Because he'll have a unique way of looking at it. That Mercury energies, you know, indicates like a friend, but it's also it's your whole identity and your heart there with that partner. And Rohini shows the stability of it and the beauty of it, the sensuality of it, and the it'd be like the Kritika energy would be where they would really open up and show you. And that's kind of liberating. They show you things where they see behind the illusions. They're not attached to certain things. And you know, that Kritika is the cutter, where you cut through the veils that are hiding you know, the truth that's sitting behind it. So I'm not one that tends to that tends to want to go negative on everything. And if you talk to a lot of Indian astrologers, they'll focus on the afflictions
Hmm.
and they'll focus on the negativity. And um, I've seen so many charts with this configuration, not with this ascendant, but with this configuration in their 12th houses, and they get so confused about what's really going on. And I think if you delve into your heart, really look at the details inside of what you scrutinize all the time, wondering about that person, um, you'll find that it's somebody who's not from where you originated from. And it's somebody who has, you know, very deep understanding of what is behind life. Kritikas, everybody I know that has Kritika, you can't fool them. You know, that's a sun's light.
Hmm.
So it shows the real power that that person can bring to you in your life, that real light they can bring to you.
I
So
will say this, my ex-husband and I are very close friends still. So our spiritual connection is amazing.
yeah, I'm not surprised at all. You know, and the it could have just taken the evolution of that time where you know, the Saturn, where you were feeling alone and isolated, took you through a big transformation that you went through.
Yeah.
And you know, the K2 also shows that somebody keeps coming back. You can have people coming back in your life to listen, for example.
Hmm.
You know, that when I see K2 a lot of times people will stay close to somebody that they, especially in Capricorn, where there's a big commitment that you're willing to make. And what you do is you gain a lot of wisdom by just listening um, to his values and what he shares with you. But maybe you just didn't want to live with him, you know, too stressful.
Yeah.
Or there was too much detachment when you were around each other. You
Yeah,
didn't know who he was
we
most of the time.
we loved each other very much, but just I think not in the same way and not at the same time.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. But I mean, I still love him very much, and he
So
does. I mean, he's moved on. He's married now, but
yeah. How's your intuition with him?
well, my intuition's very keen with everyone.
Yeah. Because you got sun and moon together there with those two nakshatras in the 12. You have Rohini moon and Kritika sun.
Wait, Rohini Moon? What do you mean?
Well, Rohini is about is moon energy, and Kritika
Oh, I
is
see what you mean. Okay.
so those two together, that energy represents Ajna Chakra as well, which is, another one of sort of those deeper sort of dreamy states that you can go into when you're meditating. You see behind the veils, and yet you see the stability of of some deeper connection. The sun will bring the power and the soul, and the moon will bring the connection to that. Um, yeah, so like for me, I'm a Capricorn, and my eighth house is Leo, and I actually have actually it's probably worthwhile showing people. I don't like to show my chart off either, but so born in Uttara um, and um, my stellium here is in the eighth house. Sun, moon, Ajna Chakra, right there, and Mercury, which is where I communicate. So I make all my money by talking to people and doing readings and coaching them and all of that. And I was a public speaker, a marketer, VP of sales, CEO of corporations. I was the person that always set the strategies and told the stories and debated all the people in high tech, and I didn't know I did any of that until I started studying Jyotish. And I have the seventh house ruler in the eighth, and every partner I've ever had cheated on me.
Wow.
So but now in my life, it's manifesting a totally different level of things. All these people all around the world are coming to me for readings and things like that. And when I'm done explaining to them what's going on, they always leave with that sense of love. And I always share as much of the love as I can with them. And the most difficult thing for me is one of my wives was a Vedic astrologer. And when the last thing I said to her before she left, I said, "So what's going to happen to me?" And she said, "You're just going to get old, get sicker, and die."
What? Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wait,
and
are they still friends? No, right?
no,
Okay.
uh, she lives in another country. Um, but see, the Venus energy was all the time telling me that you don't do well with women, and I only work with women.
Where
When I
is your
was in
Venus? What
when
what nakshatra?
in Chitra,
Okay.
Nakshatra, Venus.
Which Chitra is about the light. So they I would say that they would bring a lot of light to you.
Well, what it shows, Chitra is where Venus is debilitated because it it's not fully cultured. Chitra is brilliance and creativity and all of that. And what happens for me is I'm an extremely spiritual person. And it's very difficult for people that are not interested in the things I'm interested in to be able to sort of be around me. And like I don't do anything to judge them or anything like that, but the Venus energy is like as soon as you see, like I'll meet somebody, I'll be thinking about dating somebody, and first thing that'll happen is they'll come over and they'll do something that's completely counter to what I'm interested in. And that's like putting a chit on a blackboard. Oh, there's one mistake, there's one issue. So it's like the Venus energy. I was joking before with Vicky, and I was saying, um, you know, Virgo's where you're not happy no matter what. And when you have Venus debilitated there, I guess what I would say is I'm all about the purity of the teaching, and what I bring out to people, the feedback people bring me is, wow, that was really brilliant. And you were very accurate about what you said. And for years I didn't understand it. And the more I studied Jyotish, the more I began to realize, oh, that's what it is. I'm very conditional about what I'll say, which is why I wouldn't say something negative to you.
Yeah.
It's my ninth, it's in my ninth, it's my Raja Yoga Karaka in the ninth. And it's my only Rajadhana Yoga.
Hmm.
You know,
So
I get,
Venus being in the 10th house, I would probably say that if you wanted to be with a partner again, you would do well with someone you can work with.
yes, that's right. And that's what I did with one of my wives. We were both business partners. And at one point she turned and looked at me. She said, you know, I don't feel like we're married. I feel like we're just working together. So I can relate to that. And I'm all about work. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, I like to relax and let go, but when I'm telling you stuff, this whole mysterious thing I was talking about, my whole life was a mystery to me, and very mystical things kept happening to me over and over and over and over and over. And that's, as I was studying and writing about the Nakshatras over the last 4 years for my teacher, I began to realize how much these ingredients of Magha, that connection to these lineages, and also the Purva Phalguni of really loving to sit and communicate with people, to really share the things about them that are the most important. And at the very end, you know, I'm in a Jupiter Mahadasha, so I'm all the time doing seva. I spend 4 hours every day doing things for people that are my clients because they have a few questions. I just do seva for it.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah, I just kind of feel like you can't be all about making money. You know, that's just one aspect of life. Um, and the most important thing you can do is to lead with service. And being a Capricorn, that's a natural, you know, I'm a worker, I'm a servant, and it's what I do.
And you're very hard on yourself.
I'm not hard on myself. I joke with myself a lot, and I laugh a lot when I'm doing readings. Um, but I don't think I've kept myself. I think I need to go move into a foreign country, and I have a group of people from South America who are trying to get me to move to Argentina for the last 2 years, and I just haven't done it. But I'm coming up on it. May 13th.
What's your Atmakarka and your Darakarka?
Atmakarka is Jupiter. Darakarka is Mars.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you know, Mars is my fourth, and I'm getting ready to move from where I am at the end of this month.
Wow.
Not this month, next month, March. And moving to a new community, you know. And my Mars is in the 12th house. I need to uproot myself. And so just to tell you as an example of this, when I worked in high tech, I worked for big companies, the inventor of Ethernet. I launched Intel's network business, which, you know, is why every computer has an Ethernet card in it right now. And I was also a debater. I would speak. You know, I did a lot of. I was what they called a market development manager. So I would walk in with people and we'd put projects in place and test them, and I would be the one who would sell the deal on it, communicate all of the things to them. And I traveled all over the world. And the launch I did with Intel was the most successful high-tech launch in history. And I didn't have anything to do with it. I just showed up.
That was during your Rahu period, right?
That was in my Rahu period, and I just showed up every day. I was always there, and I was traveling all the time, which is one of the reasons why the 8th house took the first wife away from me. So,
but having Jupiter as Atmakarka, I would say you're very optimistic, and people just generally like you.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at things from a growth perspective, not from, it's like I said, I don't like to tell a bad story, but if somebody's chart only tells that story because it's a pattern in their life, I will tell them that. But I always look for, where's the growth? Where's the light in this vision? Where's the real kind of, and these days it's a lot of hopium, with people that are in Capricorn.
You
And
should share your chart with us more.
yeah, well, I'll be more than happy to as we go through and express each of these, because I really love it when it's an open forum and everybody can talk about their charts, and we're all safe here together, and we can always learn from each other, and
Yeah.
it's an important thing. So anyway, it was wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Susan.
Thank you.
And if anyone else we're running late now, so we should probably wrap everything up. But maybe for next week, we're going to be dealing with Hasta, Chitra, and Swati. And those will be fun. That's where we start moving into socializing a lot of this information and interacting with people and how we communicate it and what our standards are like. And it's such a fascinating study. Nakshatras, they're just amazing, absolutely amazing. So if some of you in the next week would like to send your chart information to me, if I didn't say I already had it, and we're going to be talking about Hasta. Hasta is my favorite nakshatra, and you'll learn why next week. It's the power of all of the deep Vedic knowledge expressed in the most profound way, and it's related to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And it's just an amazing area of the chart to really explore all those details and everything. So I suppose we should wrap everything up. And so before we do, I'd like to just offer a final blessing. Let's just bring our attention back into the moment. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all beings be happy. Go forward and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for your participation today. And I already have the charts and stuff set up for next week, and so I'll send them out to you earlier. Are you getting enough time to see and look through the stuff? Would you like them a day before, maybe Thursday?
That would be nice.
Okay.
Yes, that would be nice.
All right. I'll send them all out. Is there anybody not getting them? If there is anybody, speak up. And because I'm working off a list that Barry gave me, so I'm hoping I'm getting it to everyone. All right, so everyone have a great week. Thank you for joining us today, and may your week be blessed with the finest that you could ask for.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.